What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today it is one of the most highly requested videos of the season. We're going to have a look at the FPL schedule between now and game week 38 and talk about your chip strategy. What's up, everyone? FPL Harry here, and today it is chip strategy time. Of course, last night we had the FA Cup 5th round draw. The 6th round causes the biggest blank of the season, so we can now look at the odds. We can give a good prediction, the percentage chances of those games taking place, and that gives a much clearer picture of whether we can play our chips and our chip strategy as well, which is why this video is out slightly later than I know a lot of other content creators have decided to upload and talk about their chip strategy, because I wanted those FA Cup fixtures to be announced, the draw to happen, so I can really plan and have a look at that week, as that has a big implication on some of the chips I want to be playing in and around that week and later on in the season as well. Before we go any further, please make sure you smash that like button, you're subscribed to the channel. This is the point in the season when we make the gains in our overall rank. This is when we win our mini leagues, because you are better planned for the remaining part of the season, because you have a better chip strategy than those around you, and that is when you get those green arrows. So if you want a little helping hand, not just in this video, but further down the line as well, make sure you've liked, make sure you've subscribed, and let's dive into it. So what you've got on screen here is the schedule between now and the end of the season. This is not all completely confirmed. We don't have the announcements of when the fixtures are going to be in terms of double game weeks. However, the likes of Ben Krellin on Twitter, I'm sure you're all aware of him, pretty accurate in predicting when these are going to be in terms of those 3 midweeks. When the FA Cup clashes, it tends to be pretty reliable that the fixture schedule is going to look something like this. So what you've got in here is your green is where the double game weeks will be. So game week 22, we've got a double. Game week 23, we've got a double game week. We know those all already. Then you have the yellow ones, which are likely to be our normal game weeks with 10 fixtures in them, like our regular week that we're used to. Actually, less than half of the game weeks left between now and the end of the season are likely to be normal game weeks. You've got 24, 27, 30 and 31, 33, 35 and 36, and 38 in there as well, with 3 predicted blanks caused by the future rounds of the FA Cup in game week 28 and 32. And of course, the blank that we know is coming up, we've already spoken about, in game week 25, caused by the EFL Cup final. Now, there are some much bigger doubles and some much smaller doubles. The big doubles that you need to look at, likely to fall in game week 29, likely to fall into game week 34, and then probably game week 37 will be the third largest double in that order. 34 versus 29, there's a 50-50 call about probably which is going to be the largest. 37 will then probably be third, and then you've got the rest in there, which, as we know, they tend to just throw a few extra fixtures in to disrupt the schedule to make our lives a little bit more difficult. Game week 26 could have them. It could even go into game week 25, which is currently a blank. There could be some doubles in there, but realistically, 22, 23, 29, 34 and 37 are those doubles that we need to be planning for. If there are extra ones in there, we can maybe pick up a few players here or there, like we do with the Manchester United one that got thrown in, like the Manchester City one in game week 23 as well. But as I say, game week 29 and 34 are the big doubles that you'll be looking to play the likes of your bench boost in as well. Now, where chip strategy comes into play in particular, now bench boost needs to be focused on particularly those large doubles. So a bench boost in either game week 29 or game week 34 is going to be very popular if you still have it. We'll get onto 6 chip strategies for you in just a moment, so bear with me. But the free hit and the wild card, they need to come out. And the reason when we get to the chip strategies, they tend to be played in and around the same time. They tend to be played in where you've got a big double or a double and a blank game week in very quick succession with each other. And looking at this, there are 2 occasions that that's going to happen, and is when we're going to need to play our chips. Game week 28 and game week 29, they're back-to-back, meaning it's very hard to defend against the blank whilst also attacking the double without the use of a chip. And then not too long after that, the blank in game week 32, which is slightly smaller than game week 28. 28, again, we're likely to lose about 5 fixtures, whereas in game week 32, we may only lose 3 or 4 or so. Game week 32 and game week 34, although there is one in the middle, there is still not enough time between the two of these to plan around well enough to set up for a bench boost in game week 34, for example, while still defending away from the blank in 32. So this is the schedule, again, not confirmed, but it's pretty accurate looking at when the free midweeks are. Let's have a look, particularly now at game week 28, which is the next big hurdle we need to get past. So last night we had, of course, the FA Cup 5th round draw, and if teams progress from that stage of the competition into the 6th round, it will cause the blank in game week 28, which will be the biggest blank that we have in the season. The game week 32 blank that we've just spoken about will be teams that progress one round further. So get through that round in round 6, get through into round 7 will cause the blank in game week 32, hence why it is slightly smaller, because there'll be some teams that get knocked out in that round. So what we have here are percentages of how likely I think those fixtures are to take place going into that game week 28. Now we have 4 games which are already confirmed to be taking place because all the teams here are knocked out. All 8 teams are already out of the FA Cup. So Chelsea versus Everton, Aston Villa versus Bournemouth, probably not 2 fixtures that we have a lot of investment in at the moment. The others that we do look at though, Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. Arsenal already out, of course, losing to Manchester City, will be playing. So your triple Arsenal, even more likely to be a great option going into game week 23. They then play in the blank in game week 25 and they'll play in the blank in game week 28 as well. We then, of course, also have Newcastle, who are out, against Nottingham Forest as well. Those games are confirmed to be having a 100% chance of going ahead in game week 28. Now, as we move up, we have slightly higher chances before we get to the ones which I think are really, really unlikely to take place. So in the next round of the Cup, of course, Fulham have to go to a replay. But if Fulham win their replay, they will then play against Leeds. With both their opponents in Liverpool and Wolves being knocked out, we are guaranteed to have at least one of the 2 fixtures. If Fulham get through, then we will have exactly one of the Fulham versus Liverpool game or the Wolves versus Leeds game going ahead in game week 28. So what that means, again, we might have Fulham versus Liverpool, or we might have, again, Wolves versus Leeds. Buying into Leeds if you're buying them for the double, and then they have the fixture in game week 25. They then now have a decent chance because they go away to Fulham in that round of the Cup, which they would have to win if they wanted to have that. So I've given it a slightly bigger chance of Leeds being knocked out. So there's about a 60% chance of that fixture going ahead and about 45% chance of the Fulham game going ahead, because of course there's a chance that Fulham don't win their replay against Sunderland. And now as we move up, we're starting to get to some fixtures that are pretty unlikely to take place. Brentford versus Leicester, I'm giving about a 25% chance, with all of those top fixtures having about a 10% chance in there of happening. Again, some easy draws combined with both teams still being in the Cup means the chances of both teams getting knocked out are very, very small. With this in mind, we're predicting 5 fixtures to take place, the 4 that we already have confirmed, plus either that Liverpool versus Fulham game or the Wolves versus Leeds game to be added in. So 5 games on and 5 games cancelled going into game week 28 is my prediction. So now that we've discussed and we've gone through what the landscape looks like, it's now time to talk to you about your chip strategy options. We've got 5 here plus an extra 2 depending on if you've used your wildcard already or if you've used your free hit already as well. If you've used all of them, so you don't have a free hit or your wildcard, you're in a very, very difficult situation. I don't actually have something in here for you. We can discuss that elsewhere if you would like to and you are in that situation. The chips and the game weeks we've got at the top now, I've removed any game weeks before game week 28 because I don't think any of us need to be playing a chip before game week 28. There is no need to play your free hit in game week 25, although you might have some Manchester United, you might have some Newcastle, Brighton, Brentford players in your team who are likely to blank in that week. The doubles later on, I think, will cause even more havoc. So just take that one on the chin and let's plan from game week 28. Probably up until about 34 is when we're going to be looking to be playing a lot of our chips. So there are a couple of different ways that you can look to tackle it, and it depends on how you like to play your free hit. And I'll tell you the chip strategy that I'm planning on using towards the end of the video as well. So chip strategy A, wildcard in game week 29, free hit 32, bench boost 34. So what this allows you to do is use your transfers going into game week 28. You can then sell all of those players that you bring in for game week 28 from those less optimal teams like Everton, like Bournemouth, who we saw having a fixture in Game Week 28, you can then use your wildcard in Game Week 29 to plan for that double and sell all of those players that you don't want that you bought in Game Week 28. Plan for the double in Game Week 29. Free hit in Game Week 32, so you can just ignore the teams that you think are going to blank in Game Week 32. So you can have none of them. You don't need to worry about that week. You can free hit to make sure you've got out enough players if you need to. Then play your bench boost in Game Week 34, which is likely to be the other big double game week. The benefits of this is you are not playing a free hit in the blank in Game Week 28. There should be enough fixtures in Game Week 32 that you could put together a pretty strong squad, and your bench boosting in Game Week 34 with wildcard in Game Week 29 allows you to put together a pretty good squad. The only negative here is I don't love playing a free hit in a blank game week. I would prefer it to play it in a double, although it doesn't seem quite as easy this season. Chip strategy B for you. Free hit Game Week 29, wildcard 33, and bench boost 34. So you would then start bringing in a few players for your Game Week 28 squad. You'd free hit Game Week 29, the double game week, to bring in as many doublers as you want. Of course, the squad that you'd be planning for Game Week 28 would also likely be very good for Game Week 32, so you wouldn't need to worry about them. You can plan for those sort of at the same time by bringing in players you think are going to play in both of those weeks in Game Week 28 and Game Week 32. Then you can wildcard Game Week 33 and bench boost straight after. The pros of this one: wildcard followed by bench boost is the best way to play your bench boost. Although it does mean you have to play wildcard in a specific week, I do think it allows you to do it very, very strongly. The other benefit to this is you play your free hit in Game Week 29. Free hitting in a double is the best way, the most explosive way to play your free hit. The negative to this is you are using your free transfers for Game Week 28 and Game Week 32 to plan for a blank game week, which means in the game weeks in between, in Game Week 30 and 31, you might not get as many green arrows and as many points as you want because you're planning for the Game Week 32 blank whilst trying to put out a good squad in Game Week 30 and 31 as well. Chip strategy C. Very similar to the one we've got before, but all it does is it moves the free hit from Game Week 29 into Game Week 28. What this allows you to do is not necessarily, you don't have to use up so many transfers planning for a blanking Game Week 28. If your team is not set up well for it, it doesn't mean you can quite attack Game Week 29 as much as you maybe want with a free hit. But for example, it allows you to use transfers in the build-up to get that good Game Week 29 squad. The pros of this, again, is you wildcard into a bench boost from Game Week 33 to Game Week 34. You don't have to worry too much about the blanking Game Week 28 because you can write it off because you'll play your free hit. The big negative here is that Game Week 29 to 32, from the team that you want in the big double in Game Week 29 to the blank team, you only have a few free transfers, and I'm not sure how well you'll be able to set up with that. Chip strategy D, so number 4, wildcard 33, bench boost 34, free hit 37. You could also move the free hit earlier, but again, that's one of the chip strategies we've already got. The wildcard 33, bench boost 34 is going to be very popular. We've already spoken about that. But you could then move your free hit from earlier on. If you think you can get through 28, 29, and 32 without using your free hit, free hitting in Game Week 37 could give you a massive, massive rank boost towards the end of the season just before it finishes. I don't think this is going to be a very popular one unless your team is in a very, very specific situation where Game Week 28 to 32 you can get through with just free transfers. And finally, E. This is similar to one we've had before, but all it does is it moves the bench boost earlier. So if you are going to free hit in Game Week 28 and you end up getting to a Game Week 29 team that you like a lot and your bench is very strong, you can play your bench boost in Game Week 29 rather than saving it to Game Week 34. The benefit to doing this is when you play your wildcard in Game Week 33, you don't have to bring in a full strength bench to plan for your bench boost. Your squad for Game Week 33 and your wildcard can just be set up a strong starting 11 for the final few weeks in the season, and you don't have to over invest in your bench. I do quite like the idea of that if the bench boost 29 does look like it's going to be a big double game week. For me, at the moment, I personally think B is the strategy I am going to go with. Attack Game Week 29, use my free transfers in and around that. Wildcard Game Week 33 before bench boosting in Game Week 34. And hopefully the teams that also have a double in 37 are very similar to the ones that have a double in Game Week 34 as well. Just to cover the final two, why, if you have no wildcard left, I think your free hit is played in game week 28. The biggest blank, just write it off. Then you can plan for the rest of the season with 32. Hopefully you can get through without too many hits needing to be taken. And if you don't have your free hit, I would dead end into game week 28. So use your transfers to sort of plan for game week 28, then get rid of all those players that you don't want with a wild card in game week 29. And I would still be bench boosting game week 34 for either of them, but you could also bench boost in game week 29 if you free hit in game week 28 as well. So you've got 5 chip strategies plus 2 bonus ones depending on the chips that you've got left. Now, you're probably all wondering, well, Harry, how does the triple captain fit into this schedule? So the final thing we've got to talk about, and we'll summarize with those chip strategies in a moment, is when to play your triple captaincy chip. Before I go into when you can play it, I personally think you should, if you haven't played it already, game week 22 and game week 23 are the best times to be playing your triple captaincy chip. There are the other potential doubles that you have in here, and let's talk about why I don't think you should be doing them. Game week 26 is likely to be a double, but only for Liverpool. I don't think any of us are really considering playing a triple captaincy on the likes of Mo Salah at the moment. Game week 29, we could have a double game week for the likes of Manchester City. However, the chip strategy that myself and a lot of you might be considering includes playing a free hit in game week 29, so you will not be able to play your triple captaincy that week. It also plans on playing a bench boost in game week 34, which is also where Manchester City could have a double game week. But your bench boost is more important, and I would play your bench boost in game week 34, and a free hit in game week 29 means you can't play your triple captaincy in either of those. And given that Manchester City are out of the EFL Cup and they've had fixtures rescheduled already in game weeks 23 against Arsenal and earlier on against Spurs, the chance of them doubling in game week 37 is very, very small. So the chance of you getting a Haaland triple captaincy in a week you're not playing a chip after game week 23 is very, very small if you play your free hit in game week 29. If you're not going to free hit game week 29, then you could potentially save it for that week to be triple captained up. Now, you might think, well, what happens if I don't want to triple captain Haaland? Well, the other options that you might have, Arsenal, their double is likely to go into game week 29 or 34. Both weeks that we're planning on playing chips. The final option you might want is Marcus Rashford. They could double again in game week 37, but the fixtures you have for him in game week 22, the form that Manchester United are on and the form that Marcus Rashford is on means I think saving it for later on in the season is only asking for trouble. So if you want Haaland, it is game week 23. If you want Marcus Rashford, it's game week 22. I don't think you should save your triple captain any further beyond game week 23. So, we've done what the schedule looks like. We've done 5 chip strategies. We've done when you should play your triple captain as well. Hopefully things become a lot clearer. Again, what we need to wait on now is who actually qualifies in the next round of the FA Cup, and that will give us confirmed numbers of fixtures going into game week 28, and it will help us plan better. Closer to the time, the likes of Ben Crellin will produce percentage chances a lot more accurately than maybe the ones I've got in here, but I am predicting 5 fixtures to take place and 5 not to take place in game week 28, which means potentially free hitting in that week or free hitting game week 29 is very, very viable, and wildcarding in game week 33 or the other way around, wildcarding early and free hitting in game week 32 is probably the way I would go. So of these chip strategies, I am looking at option B as my chip strategy between now and at the end of the season, and I will play my triple captain in game week 22 or game week 23 as well. I hope this made sense. It did to me. Any questions you have about it, drop it all in the comment section down below. Any questions about your general FPL team, again, leave it there or message me over on Twitter. We're going to try and hit 1,000 likes on the video. If you have found it useful, if it has benefited you, again, all these graphics are over on Twitter. So if you have enjoyed it, if you like them, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel before you go. Thank you all so much for the support. Good luck in game week 22 when it does come around, and I'll be back again very soon.